we're going to move into the English language learner.
Great. Thank you. So text-dependent questions are a great strategy for students, and they have to be able to do this. They have to be able to pull evidence and cite it directly from the text. That's what claim evidence reasoning is asking of them. That's what we're asking of them in their English classes as well. But it's a really difficult thing to do for a lot of students, because if I look at some examples, and these are examples of right there questions. If I look at these, how do turtles use the Earth's magnetic field? When do the baby turtles start in opposite directions? What happened when Lohmann tweaked the magnetic tanks? If I look at question 3, for most of my kids, they'll be okay. But my EL students and other students won't be able to understand that question. So you may need to include a scaffolding, which could include a sentence starter or a sentence frame. Now, this is scaffolded in a way with sentence frames that would be for your lower level kids. We're talking 2s, maybe some of your low 3s. And the reason it's scaffolded that way is because not only are they fully complete sentences, but you'll also notice that the blanks actually equal the number of words that kids should be looking for. If I had a 4 or a high 3, this would not be the right scaffold for them. This is too much. If I had a 3, I could just use a sentence starter. The turtles swam, and then they'd have to fill in the rest, okay? The other piece of why we use sentence frames and paragraph frames with our students is because the vocabulary that they're missing often is the piece that glues the sentence together. So the turtles swam blank if the field simulated that piece, if the field simulated, that's a very difficult piece of grammar for students to master and to use. And so when we look at sentence frames, it's not just because a student can fill in the blanks. It's because students are often missing what is the grammatical piece or the linguistic pattern that would glue my answer together. The language that they're missing is the structure that holds sentences together. So this is one way you could scaffold. The other thing I wanted to highlight is a trick that we use called Optic. And Optic can be used with reading graphics. And your students will have to read a complicated graphic in the reading section. It's rated as a difficult graphic. In the writing and language, they will have basic graphics. So Optic is a quick strategy, and it stands for an overview. The first thing we would do is we'd look at the graphic, and we would determine, okay, what is my overview of it? What's my first impression? Parts, I would look at the parts and note any details that seem important. 3, for the title, I would read the title or the caption for additional information. For the I would look for inner relationships. That's always a fun one to try and explain. But you're going to use the words in the title and the parts to determine what else I can find out about this or how it relates to each other. And then C, I need to make a conclusion about this visual. So the way that this looks is if I pulled that graphic from the turtle example, the first thing I would notice, my overview, would be that it's in degrees. So I'm going to measure something or I'm going to do directions. Now, of course, if your kids don't have background in seeing a graphic like this, they won't know what that's for. But if they have, this would be my overview. For 2, and we flip back to Optic, I'm looking at the parts. So I notice that there are arrows on opposite sides. Okay, that I would be looking at the parts of that. For 3, I would look at the title, and I notice that I've got west and I've got east, and I've got some island names. 4, the inner relationships. If I could put this together, and of course this would require modeling think-alouds for your students so they would know how to go about putting this together, I can combine my title and what I noticed with the parts. So I have west and east arrows, and they're going in opposite directions. And then finally, my conclusion is that there is some sort of piece about this that is opposite for west and east, and that would depend on where the turtles were starting. So that's one of the tricks that we use to help teach our kids about graphics in textbooks and graphics in informational text. So with that, it is time to send you to lunch. If you are a KLC member, KLC has a lunch meeting in the Cedar Room. Otherwise, if you're not a KLC member, we will see you back at 12:30 and we will continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for the morning.